Following the revelation of Grace Buckingham's $1 million miraculous scam, spoilers for The Bold and the Beautiful indicate that Steffy Forrester would utter 4 words of contempt. Steffy is currently too appreciative of Liam Spencer's survival to focus on her concerns over his experimental process. That makes sense given that Steffy believed she was about to lose Liam forever. Since Grace is a well-respected physician and John Finnegan's colleague, Steffy has no reason to question the medical advancement Liam got. Steffy is prepared to look to the future after just accepting the miraculous result. However, after Grace's deceit is exposed, Steffy will adopt a completely different mindset. It won't be long until Finn discovers, thanks to his investigation, that Grace provided phony images to lead Liam to believe his brain mass was authentic. Regarding all the medicines that B&B fans witnessed Liam taking, it is likely that he was given something to simulate the symptoms of a worsening tumor. By persuading Bill Spencer to pay $1 million for a fictitious procedure that most likely amounted to a minor cut on Liam's skull, Grace completed her plot. Grace was obviously under pressure to do all of this, most likely as a result of a mound of debt, but it doesn't justify the extreme she went to. When Liam and his family believed he might meet a terrible end, Grace caused them a great deal of suffering. The idea of living in a world without Liam made Steffy frightened. Steffy will always value Liam, particularly since he is Kelly Spencer's father. It was nearly unbearable to think of Liam not being there to see Kelly and Beth Spencer grow up. In the upcoming episodes, Steffy will be furious when Grace is shown to be a fraudster. Steffy might get the opportunity to give Grace her best shot at some point. That can result in Steffy uttering the 4 repulsed words we alluded to. "You make me sick." Keep an eye out for any updates on any repercussions, as you can guarantee Steffy will lose her temper and claim that Grace should be imprisoned over this information. According to previews for The Bold and the Beautiful, Liam's entire tumor revelation will significantly alter this plot. With the phone calls to and from the individual waiting for the $1 million on the CBS serial opera Bold and the Beautiful, Grace Buckingham abruptly seemed terrified. She suffered a breakdown after transferring the funds to another location after receiving them in her account. The person on the other end of the phone was anticipating her sending them the $1 million. Bill Spencer provided the funds, paying Grace to enable her colleague to pull off a purported miracle. However, Grace Buckingham was the only medical professional to touch Liam Spencer. It appeared that the doctor who performed the experimental surgical cure was not very knowledgeable about the process. Rather, Grace did the surgery as he sat in the back seat. Bold and Beautiful. Family crime is nothing new to Grace Buckingham. Bold and Beautiful's criminal element is nothing new to Grace Buckingham. Dr. Reese Buckingham, her ex-husband, was incarcerated for a horrifying crime. After delivering Hope Logan's baby alive, he told Hope that her kid was dead and replaced it with a stillborn child from another mother. Even though Grace wasn't married to Reese at the time, she probably had some idea of what he was capable of. 2 weeks of Bold and Beautiful spoilers, July 21st to August 1st. Finn suspicious and Luna in coma. Steffy Forrester was then defrauded by Reese after she spent a lot of money adopting the child. Steffy was unaware that this was Hope's child. Rather, Reese said that a mother who was unable to care for the child gave up the baby. Additionally, he created a phony mother for Steffy to meet. In order to adopt the child, he conned Steffy out of a huge sum of money, and nobody realized it was the daughter of Hope and Liam Spencer. The rest is the history of Bold and the Beautiful, since Liam and Hope were able to retrieve their child. However, is Grace capable of defrauding Liam of a remedy for his tumor death sentence? B&B. What fear does Grace have? Even though it appears like Grace Buckingham is involved in a fraud, she doesn't seem like the criminal type, and perhaps she isn't, even though she had an ex-husband who did a terrible crime. Perhaps Grace is being blackmailed on Bold and the Beautiful, but who knows? Grace Buckingham, Liam Spencer, and Bold and the Beautiful. Paris Buckingham and Zoe Buckingham are Grace's 2 grown daughters. When Zoe appeared on the screen of Bold and the Beautiful, she was a little cunning. When we last heard from Paris, she was working at Forrester Creations International in France and living with Thomas Forrester. Thus, did Grace create this multimillion-dollar fraud to save one of her daughters who might be in danger? Or even Reese, since nobody would be surprised if he lied and conned his way into such a scheme by possibly persuading Grace that he would die without this money. Is he using Grace to get this money then? Whatever is happening, Grace appears to be suffering, and it appears that this deception is killing her. It appears that she doesn't want to do this based on her response on Bold and the Beautiful this week. Good gone bad, Bold and the Beautiful? Did Grace Buckingham, like her ex-husband Reese, suddenly become a scammer? Most likely not, given that she seemed to be in a state of despair following her receipt of the money from Bill. Then we find out that she transferred the whole $1 million to a different party. Therefore, she had no intention of keeping the money for herself. The teasers for The Bold and the Beautiful tell us that this week, her entire world falls apart. Both Finn's and Bridget Forrester's suspicions increase. Liam Spencer's miraculous remedy seems suspicious to both of them. Grace faked Liam's cancer? Soap dirt in Bold and the Beautiful. When Bridget begins to inquire about the process, Grace Buckingham chews off her head. Finn tried to discuss it with Bill Spencer, but he was too thrilled that Liam had been spared to see where Finn was taking the subject. And that's because Grace's statements don't sound plausible. Although many fans believe that Reese is back in the picture and forcing Grace to do something against her will, no one has been able to provide a reason for this hypothesis. It would have to be fairly terrible for her to go this far, unless Reese has something on Grace that she wants to keep private. We still don't know who the millionaire is today, so why does Grace Buckingham appear to be so afraid of them on this week's CBS soap opera? Steffi's jaw was so tightened that it felt like her molars may break as she stood still in the executive office of Forrester Creations. Already, the headlines were going viral on all the financial crime watch lists and gossip blogs on the internet. Master con artist or miracle healer? Grace Kensington's $1 million charity fraud is being investigated. Beneath the bolded letters were screenshots of expensive automobiles, handbags, and travel schedules that screamed opulence, juxtaposed with images of happy donors and crying patients. The Healing Hearts Initiative allegedly provided funding for all of this, a group that had claimed miracles but just provided false information. Around her, the room was alive with people whispering urgently, phones ringing, and the soft hum of a television in the background that kept showing the news loop. Talking heads and scandal-hungry anchors were now analyzing Grace's face frame by frame, which had previously been calm and wide-eyed in her public interviews. Watching the broadcast from the corner of the room made Steffi's blood boil. She had put her faith in Grace. She had endorsed her. Everything was now polluted. She swept past astonished staffers and cautious bystanders as she strode down the hallway, her heels resonating off the marble floors. She didn't hesitate when she eventually arrived at the meeting room. She shoved the door open and entered immediately. Carter, Thomas, and Ridge were already seated inside, their expressions ranging from disbelief to incredulity. Ridge rubbed the back of his neck and got to his feet. Steffi. Steffi interrupted him with a harsh, cold voice. She lied. She misled us all. Leaning forward, Thomas drummed his phone on the table. It can be found anywhere. Forbes, TMZ, and even the LA Times. The entire thing was a front. The so-called healing sessions, the touching tales, and the miraculous cures were all staged or contrived. A cruel line formed on Steffi's lips. For words. When I saw the reports, that was all I could think of. Ridge's eyebrows went up. What? Steffi's voice was low but sharp as she gazed at each of them. How was she able to? Carter leaned back in his chair and let out a long sigh. We performed background investigations. We investigated her qualifications. Everything seemed to be in order. She had records, doctors who attested to her methods and testimonials. They were compensated. With a snap, Steffi slammed her hand down on the table. She compensated them for lying. Or put them in danger. Or perhaps they participated in it. We also provided her with a platform. We welcomed her into our family and our world. We made a donation. Used social media to promote her. As she sucked people dry, we stood at her side. As the impact of her words sunk in, there was a prolonged period of silence. Grace Kensington wasn't your typical con man. She had become part of their social circle, going to events and interacting with businesses and influencers, while playing the ideal part of humanitarian and visionary healer. Her tales of dying children finding serenity, miraculous cures for fatal illnesses, and spiritual awakenings had been heartwarming. The sensation had seemed too pleasant to be real. It was too. As he browsed through his phone once more, Thomas read out loud, The Healing Hearts Initiative raised over $1 million in donations in just 9 months, promising to give patients in need free therapies. More than 80% of the money, according to investigators, allegedly flowed straight into Kensington's personal accounts to finance upscale purchases, private vacations, and foreign real estate ventures. Ridge gave his temple a rub. Are we aware of whether anyone was genuinely assisted? Carter gave a headshake. Perhaps just enough to maintain the illusion. However, most patients were either actors or individuals who were tricked and forced to remain silent. Steffy gazed at the table's gleaming wood. She recalled the gala they had held 6 months prior, when Grace had stood on stage and thanked everyone for their kindness while her eyes, which now appeared to be crocodile tears, welled up. She considered the woman who had asserted that Grace used herbal therapy and energy work to cure her daughter's illness. Was she also involved in the scam? Or was she just another desperate mother holding out hope? We must go public, Steffy finally declared. We must make a message public. We put all distance between us and her. We give the investigation our complete cooperation. And we express our regret to everyone who may have contributed as a result of us. Thomas gave a slow nod. I agree. Ridge let out a sigh. It will harm our reputation. Questions are already being asked. Then we confront it directly, Steffy stated. Our role in this is our own. We were duped. However, we don't remain quiet. She sat by herself in her office later that day, gazing out the window at the skyline of Los Angeles. Her phone was constantly buzzing with messages from allies, reporters, and even a few silent thank yous from victims who had started to come forward. As soon as the news broke, Grace Kensington was gone. Her social media profiles had been removed, and her house was deserted. Her guilt was only validated by her silence. Those 4 words kept coming back to Steffy. How could she steal money intended to benefit sick children while staring into their eyes? How could she use the agony of others to build her empire? How could she take advantage of their faith, hope, and trust? It wasn't merely deception. The seduction of the most vulnerable on a spiritual and emotional level was something far more diabolical. And no lawsuit, jail time, or public apology would ever be sufficient for that. A knock on the door was heard. Her husband, Finn, was there, his look sullen. Are you okay? He inquired softly. Steffy shook her head after nodding. I can't stop wondering how I missed it. Everyone else saw what you saw. A woman who was so good at the part that it didn't even seem like an act, and who knew the perfect things to say. It's what scammers do. They are skilled at it. Her head was resting on his chest. I had faith in her. I took her words at face value. He remarked. And now you believe in the truth. That's what counts. Steffy was aware that the effects would last for weeks or even months when the sun set and the city was covered in gold. News conferences, lawsuits, and possibly even arrests. But she also knew something else. She wouldn't let this break her. One step at a time she would restore trust. And Grace Kensington would never again sell salvation through Steffy Forrester, no matter where she was hiding.